Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe and support me. Morgana and the Lost Wizard Academy. The rain came down in sheets, soaking the cobblestone streets of Camelot. A heavy fog rolled in from the forests, its great tendrils creeping toward the castle as if it carried Morgana's dark influence with it. Merlin stood on the castle's outer wall, his long, weathered fingers gripping the stone as he peered into the murky distance. He could feel it, the shift in magic, the unsettling pulse in the air. His thoughts churned, battling the heavy realization that Morgana had found something long forgotten yet dangerous beyond comprehension. Arthur's voice broke the silence. "Merlin, what is it?" "You've been out here for hours." Merlin turned, his deep blue eyes clouded with concern. "I fear we are facing a threat unlike any before." "It's Morgana Broken Bar. She's found the Lost Wizard Academy." Arthur frowned, stepping closer, his armor clinking softly. "The Academy? The one destroyed centuries ago?" "That's just a legend." Merlin's voice grew sharp, laden with urgency. "It's very real. It was the seat of unimaginable magical power, a place where wizards dabbled in forces that no one should ever touch. The Academy was destroyed in a disaster that nearly tore the fabric of our world. If Morgana has found its ruins, she will seek to revive its dark magic." Arthur's expression hardened. He had faced Morgana's treachery before, but this was different. This was bigger, more dangerous. "We'll stop her." "Where is it?" Merlin hesitated. "Its location was lost to time. Even I don't know exactly where it lies, but I've sensed its awakening." Dark magic lingers in the air, thickening like a storm ready to break. "We must find it, Arthur, and destroy whatever remains before she completes her plan." Arthur nodded resolutely. "Gather our knights. We leave at dawn." As dawn broke over Camelot, Arthur and Merlin rode out with a small contingent of trusted knights. The journey was perilous, forests filled with Morgana's spies, rivers teeming with magical traps. Every mile toward the ruins brought new dangers, and Merlin's sense of urgency grew stronger. Morgana was closer than they had anticipated. Their path led them into the ancient woods of Avalon, a forest known for its magical properties and long abandoned by all but the most daring travelers. The trees were enormous, their twisted branches reaching into the sky like skeletal hands. Strange whispers echoed through the air, remnants of old magic that still haunted the woods. As they ventured deeper, Merlin grew more anxious. "These woods of Broken Bar, they're alive with magic. We must be careful. Morgana's influence is everywhere." Arthur's grip tightened on his sword hilt. "Then let's not waste time." They pressed on, the terrain becoming more treacherous. Dark figures moved in the shadows, and the knights were forced to stay vigilant, fending off attacks from creatures corrupted by Morgana's growing power. She was already preparing her army. By the third day, they reached the outskirts of the ruins. The landscape had changed dramatically. The air was thick with decay, and the ground was littered with the remnants of what had once been a grand structure. The remains of stone towers jutted out from the earth like the bones of a long-dead giant, their surfaces blackened by centuries of neglect. Strange symbols, worn and weathered, were etched into the stones, glowing faintly with dark energy. Arthur halted his horse, staring at the desolation before him. "These Broken Bar, this was the Academy?" Merlin nodded grimly. "What's left of it. The power here has been dormant for centuries, but now it stirs again. We're running out of time." They dismounted, their boots sinking into the soft, damp earth as they approached the ruins on foot. The closer they got, the more palpable the dark magic became, wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. Suddenly, a voice cut through the air, soft and cold. "You're too late, Merlin." Morgana stepped out from behind one of the ruined pillars, her eyes glowing with the unmistakable aura of dark magic. She wore a flowing black cloak, the fabric seeming to absorb the light around her, and in her hand was a staff made of twisted wood, its tip pulsing with raw energy. Arthur drew his sword, stepping protectively in front of Merlin. "Morgana, this ends here." Morgana's lips curved into a cruel smile. "Oh, Arthur, always so predictable. You can't stop what's already in motion. Merlin stepped forward, his voice steady but laced with tension. Morgana, you don't understand the power you're dealing with. The Academy was destroyed for a reason. The magic here is too dangerous. It will consume you. Her eyes flashed with anger. It didn't consume those who were strong enough to wield it. And I am stronger than any who came before. With the Academy's magic, I will create an army of wizards loyal only to me, and we will reshape this world. Arthur raised his sword. Not if we stop you. Morgana laughed, a sound that echoed unnaturally through the ruins. You can try, but you'll fail, just as you always do. With a flick of her wrist, the ground beneath them trembled, and from the shadows, dark figures emerged. The spirits of ancient wizards, long dead but not at peace, bound to the Academy's ruins by the dark magic that lingered there. Their forms were twisted, their eyes glowing with malevolent light. Arthur and the knights braced themselves as the spirits charged, their ethereal bodies moving with unnatural speed. Swords clashed against the dark magic, and the battle erupted in chaos. Merlin, his staff glowing with bright, white light, focused his energy on Morgana. He could feel the power of the Academy all around them, feeding her magic, making her stronger with each passing moment. He knew he couldn't defeat her in a direct confrontation, and not here, not with the Academy's magic fueling her. But he had another plan. As Arthur and the knights fought off the spirits, Merlin began to weave a spell, drawing on the ancient magic of the earth itself. His voice rose, chanting in a language long forgotten by most, and the ground beneath them began to shift. Morgana's eyes narrowed. What are you doing? Merlin didn't answer. His focus was absolute, his magic pulling at the very foundation of the ruins. Stones began to crack, the symbols glowing brighter as the ancient magic responded to his call. Morgana screamed in fury, hurling a bolt of dark energy at him, but Arthur was there, his sword catching the attack and deflecting it with a burst of light. You'll have to go through me first, Arthur growled. Morgana's eyes burned with hatred. Gladly. The duel between Arthur and Morgana raged as Merlin continued his spell, his magic tearing at the ruins. The Academy had to be destroyed, completely obliterated, or Morgana would succeed in raising her army. But even as Merlin's spell grew stronger, the Academy fought back. The dark magic within its walls resisted, pulling against him, trying to maintain its hold on the world. The spirits grew more aggressive, their attacks more vicious, and the knights were beginning to falter. Merlin's heart pounded in his chest. He had to act now, or all would be lost. With a final, desperate push, Merlin unleashed the full force of his magic, and the ground beneath the ruins shattered. The stone towers crumbled, the symbols flickered and died, and the dark magic that had lingered there for centuries was finally severed. Morgana screamed as the power she had been feeding on vanished, her grip on the Academy slipping away. The spirits howled in agony as they were pulled back into the darkness, their connection to the living world broken. Arthur, breathing heavily, stood over her, his sword raised. It's over, Morgana. But even as she lay there, weakened and defeated, Morgana's eyes gleamed with defiance. You've won this battle, Arthur, but the war is far from over. Before Arthur could react, she vanished in a cloud of dark smoke, her laughter echoing through the ruins. Merlin collapsed to his knees, his energy spent. Arthur rushed to his side, helping him up. Merlin, are you all right? Merlin nodded weakly, his voice hoarse. For now. But she's right, this isn't the end. As they stood amid the crumbling ruins of the Academy, Arthur gazed out at the horizon, his jaw clenched in determination. We'll be ready for her, Merlin. Whatever comes next, we'll be ready. Merlin nodded, though a shadow of doubt lingered in his mind. The Academy was gone, but the darkness Morgana had awoken would not be so easily silenced. And so, with heavy hearts, they turned their backs on the ruins and began the long journey home, knowing that the fight was far from over. Merlin and Arthur rode in silence for much of the journey back to Camelot, their horses' hooves clapping softly against the wet, muddied road. The air was thick with tension, both men burdened by the knowledge that while they had stopped Morgana from resurrecting the Academy, the threat she posed was still very much alive. The sky had begun to clear, a faint hint of sunlight breaking through the lingering fog, but it did little to lighten their spirits. Arthur glanced at Merlin, who rode beside him, visibly drained. The battle with Morgana had taken its toll, but there was something else weighing on the old wizard, something darker, more troubling. Merlin's eyes remained fixed on the path ahead, yet his mind seemed far away, as if replaying the events of the last few days, searching for answers buried deep within the chaos of the Academy's ruins. "You did everything you could, Merlin," Arthur said finally, his voice low but firm. Merlin's grip tightened on the reins, but he didn't respond immediately. After a long moment, he sighed, his shoulders sagging slightly under the weight of unspoken fears. "It's not just Morgana," he said, his voice soft and tired. "It's the magic itself. The Academy. It wasn't just a place of learning. The magic they practice it's ancient, forbidden. Dark forces linger there still, and we only scratched the surface." Arthur frowned, his brow furrowing in concern. "You think Morgana will try again?" Merlin nodded. "She's tasted that power now. She'll seek it out again, in different forms, in different places, and we'll have to be ready. There are still remnants of the Academy's magic in the world, yet dangerous, powerful magic, and Morgana will stop at nothing to claim it." Arthur's jaw tightened, his resolve hardening. "Then we'll stop her." "Whatever it takes." Merlin gave a wary nod, though his heart remained heavy. He knew Arthur's courage was unmatched, but even the bravest of men could only do so much against the ancient forces of magic that Morgana was now playing with. Still, he couldn't help but admire Arthur's unwavering determination. They continued in silence, the weight of their task looming large between them. Morgana's influence, though temporarily diminished, was a shadow that stretched long across the horizon of their futures. And Merlin knew deep down that the battles ahead would test them in ways they had never been tested before. As they neared Camelot, the familiar sight of the castle's towering walls came into view, its stone battlements standing proud against the backdrop of the rising sun. The city below was beginning to stir, the early morning hustle of merchants and villagers bringing the streets to life. But even the peace of Camelot felt fragile now, like a calm before the storm. The gates opened for them, and they rode into the castle courtyard. The knights dismounted, their faces weary from battle, and Arthur handed the reins of his horse to a stable hand. "See to the horses," he ordered, before turning to Merlin. "We should speak with the council. They need to know what we're up against." Merlin nodded, though part of him dreaded the conversation that awaited them. The council would demand answers that Merlin wasn't sure he could provide. What he had seen in the ruins of the Academy defied explanation, and the power that had lingered there was far beyond anything Camelot's leaders had ever dealt with. They ascended the stone steps of the castle, their footsteps echoing in the grand halls as they made their way to the council chamber. Inside, a small group of lords and advisors waited, their faces tense with anticipation. News of the Academy's destruction had already reached them, but they knew little of the dark magic that lay beneath the surface of the events. Arthur addressed them first, his voice calm and authoritative. "We've stopped Morgana from raising the Academy, but the threat she poses is far from over. The magic she seeks is older and more dangerous than we ever imagined. We'll need to take steps to protect Camelot from future attacks." The lords exchanged uneasy glances, but it was Sir Leon who spoke first. "How can we defend against something we don't fully understand? Magic is unpredictable, and Morgana is relentless. What can we do?" Merlin stepped forward, his voice grave. "There are ways to protect ourselves, but it will require vigilance and preparation. We must find and destroy any remnants of the Academy's magic that still exist, and we'll need to be ready for Morgana's return. She won't rest until she finds another way to seize power." Sir Leon nodded, though the worry on his face remained. "Then we'll do what we must. But we can't fight this battle alone. We need allies." Arthur agreed. "I'll send word to our neighboring kingdoms. We'll need their support if Morgana makes another move. And Merlin will help us fortify our defenses against magic." Merlin hesitated for a moment, then spoke again, his voice quiet but firm. "There's something else. The magic we're dealing with, a broken bar, it's not just Morgana's. It's older, more dangerous than even she realizes. The Academy was destroyed for a reason, but its secrets are still out there, hidden in places we haven't yet discovered. If we don't find them first, Morgana will." The council fell silent, the weight of Merlin's words sinking in. They were no longer just fighting Morgana, they were fighting forces that had existed long before any of them had been born. Arthur's voice broke the silence. "Then we'll search. We'll find these secrets before Morgana can use them against us." Merlin gave a nod of approval, though he knew the path ahead would not be easy. Camelot would need to tread carefully, for the forces they were up against were not merely mortal, but ancient, woven into the very fabric of magic itself. Days passed, and preparations were made. Arthur dispatched envoys to neighboring kingdoms, seeking alliances and warning of the growing threat. Camelot's defenses were strengthened, and Merlin spent long hours in the library, poring over old texts in search of anything that could give them an edge against Morgana's dark magic. But even as they worked to fortify the kingdom, Merlin couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking, something hidden deep within the ruins of the Academy that they had missed. The memory of the dark magic that had clung to the stones, the way it had resisted his spells, nagged at him like an unfinished puzzle. One evening, as the castle lay quiet under the soft glow of the moon, Merlin found himself returning to the tower where he often sought solace. He gazed out over the kingdom, his mind drifting back to the ruins. There was something more to the Academy, something that still eluded him. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Arthur entered, his expression serious but not unkind. "I thought I'd find you here." Merlin turned, giving a small, weary smile. "Couldn't sleep?" Arthur shook his head. "Neither can you, it seems." Merlin sighed, leaning against the stone wall. "There's something I missed, Arthur." "Something in the ruins." "I can feel it, but I can't put my finger on it." Arthur's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Merlin hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "The Academy broken bar, when we destroyed it, the magic didn't just vanish. It's still there, lingering. And there's a presence, a broken bar, something dark, something older than Morgana." Arthur's expression grew grave. "Are you saying we didn't stop it?" Merlin shook his head. "We stopped Morgana's immediate plan, yes. But the magic, the force that destroyed the Academy in the first place, yeah, it's still out there. And if Morgana finds it again, a broken bar." Arthur didn't need him to finish the sentence. He already knew what was at stake. "We'll go back," Arthur said, his voice firm. "We'll find whatever it is and destroy it for good." Merlin looked at him, the weight of their task pressing heavily on his chest. "We may not get a second chance." Arthur met his gaze, his eyes filled with the same unshakable determination that had seen them through countless battles before. "Then we won't need one." Merlin nodded slowly, feeling the gravity of what lay ahead. Together, they would face whatever darkness awaited them, just as they always had. But this time, the stakes were higher than ever before. The road to the Academy had been perilous, but the road ahead was even more uncertain. Yet as long as Arthur stood beside him, Merlin knew they had a fighting chance. The end was not yet written,